Welcome back to the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast. Thank you, everyone out there in the internet regions that get to listen and watch. Now that we've got a YouTube and a live stream on LinkedIn, today we are going to be talking about a pretty cool topic related to AI and voice and just kind of how AI is really taking over our world. I was just talking with our CTO the other day about just how much AI has become, I guess, socialized in a way that I think there's a lot of misnomers about what it is. And so we're joined by a guest that's been living in the space for a while. They're trying to solve some problems for restaurants. And so for someone to introduce you to Ben, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Who is Ben Brown? What does Ben Brown get a chance to do? And then we can talk a little bit about your role at Converse Now and how you guys are, taking on the world.
Great. Hey, Jeremy, thanks a lot for the intro and for having me. It's, as a big fan of everything that you do, at the Restaurant Technology Guys do, it is humbling to actually be on here speaking with you.
Yeah, don't let my kids know because they like to make fun of me all the time. They're like, Dad, they totally make fun of me about it. We were at a trade show recently and somebody came up to me and they were like, hey, I've heard your show. And they're like, Dad, this is ridiculous. So sorry, I appreciate the accolades, but
of course, you're a celeb in the space. So for those tuning in, Jeremy and I have gotten to meet several times on the conference circuit. It's a very, very dedicated group in restaurant technology. So I'm Ben Brown, and I serve as Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience at Converse Now. Converse Now is a voice AI company that automates drive-through and phone orders for some of the nation's leading restaurant chains. We do that using voice AI-powered virtual ordering assistants that take orders in the same way a physical team member would. So a guest speaks to the AI in the same way it would speak to a regular person, a natural, free-flowing conversation where they can ask questions, change their mind, disregards the background noise and honking horns and barking dogs and all those things. And provides a pretty good experience for the guests, for the staff working at the store, and of course for the restaurant's bottom line. We'll get into detail there, right? I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's an amazing group to be a part of. We're based in Austin, Texas. I'm personally based in San Diego and work remotely. We have a global team. It's just an incredible group. And the only thing I'll add to your note about trying to solve some problems, I am happy to say that we do have some numbers to back it up now. We've been solving those problems pretty well. So
I love it.
It's been good.
Well, and as you alluded to in your intro, you and I have gotten a chance to talk on kind of the conference circuit. So I will be truthful, and this has been probably 18 months since I heard about it. Even 18 months ago, I was skeptical. I'm certain a lot of our audience members are going to be like, yeah, you're going to have an AI take my order. You're going to have an AI, the amount of permeations that go on with my burger and go on with all of those things. So I'm certain we're going to dig into that. So I'm really excited to educate our audience about, I guess, I think everybody understands the why, but let's dig in a little bit, Ben, on why do we think we need this kind of technology in today's day and age? We've had drive-thrus for 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, and they've worked. The speaker boxes work. The ability to take that order and get it and ask the questions has worked. Why now? Why should technology be the way that people are thinking now versus, we got a staff member, they're going to do this and take care of that?
Yeah, no, it's such a good question, Jeremy. And, I think the same question was probably posed to Henry Ford when horses were working just fine as a primary mode of transport. The same question, was leveled to Steve Jobs when, computers were, for a very niche group of people that wanted to build them themselves and not really marketed for a mass audience. Drive-through has been ripe for innovation for literally decades. Mm-hmm. And, what's working is working, right? But the question is there a way to make it better? And the answer is absolutely. So if I was to pose this question to you as a consumer, right, as a person who would go through the drive-through to order food, maybe when your kids are screaming in the car and they just want food now, what if we could make drive-through lines go faster? Yeah. What if we could make it easier to hear that person on the other line? What if you felt, more cared for and more valued because you weren't feeling rushed to get through an order? What if your orders were more accurate, right? I mean, the list
Which
goes
are
on.
all problems that every drive-through deals with. Order
Yeah.
accuracy, understanding what the guest is looking for, pushing them through the line. You've got that family. Many of our longtime listeners know that I've got a family of 4 kids. And so driving through the drive-through is a lot of work, driving through the drive-through and trying to figure out who wants what and such. And I know that, you guys have been around for a while, so it was even before the labor crisis hit. But, and so back to the skeptic that I talked about just a few minutes ago. I was a skeptic because I think a lot of people, when they think of voice AI, they think of my cable company or my cell phone company or my credit card company, where you just scream into the phone representative until you can actually talk to someone. You don't engage in it because so often they don't get you what you're looking for. We all know what the experience could or should be when we go to a drive-through because we've been doing it for 60 years. The mode, to your point, ripe for disruption, has not changed in 60 years. You go up to a squawk box, you may or may not be able to hear the person. They may or may not be able to hear you, but you're going to shout into that box what you want, and hopefully the bag that comes out is going to have the food that you ordered or the desserts that you ordered or the drinks that you ordered when you get up to the window. Talk to me a little bit about the innovation and why the technology is so much different than what a lot of skeptics think of when they think of calling American Express, or they think of calling, AT&T, and they're pissed off and they want to get their bill figured out, or they want to get, that's what a lot of people think of when they hear voice AI and go, no, that'll never work for me.
There's no question about it, Jeremy. You are hitting it right on the head that as it currently stands, the perception of voice AI are those archaic systems that we are all unfortunately used to, that tear your hair out feeling when you have to press a bunch of buttons and you just cannot get a question answered, a one-size-fits-all methodology that doesn't work for hardly anyone. So happy to say that voice AI has come a very, very long way. You've noted it a couple of times now. Converse Now has been around since 2018, quote unquote, before AI was cool. Far before the OpenAI ChatGPT trend took off. We've built our AI in-house, and we have really seen it from its inception to where it is right now. And the technology there, it's natural, it's free flowing, and at this point, yes, you know that you're speaking with a virtual assistant. Oftentimes, the AI will introduce itself as a virtual assistant, so you're not getting fooled. But from there, you just talk to it like you talk to a person, right? You just say, "Yeah, I'd like a number one, no ketchup, extra pickles, and actually make it the number two, and I'll take a medium Diet Coke. And can I use this coupon that I got?" And the AI will just, process all of it and repeat the order back to you so that you're getting, the order that you're asking for. And boom, you just drive up. The staff take it in, without an issue. It's as if one of their colleagues took it. There's no real training needed on their end. It's just pretty seamless at the back of the house. But yeah, going back to the guest experience, that is the number one most important thing that we focused on from our inception in 2018 was what is going to create the experience that guests want to have. This isn't about people tolerating technology. It's about people embracing it, right? Why do people flock to the newest MacBook or the newest iPad or the newest iPhone, right? Because it's something that's cool, that they love to engage in. And it really blends, the idea of, art and technology. And that's exactly what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily for consumer hardware, but for the ordering experience that people are looking for.
Well, and we talk a lot about it on the show. Almost every single episode, I talk about the guest experience and delivering technology for technology's sake is worthless. I've said that 7,000 times because technology that doesn't try to solve or ultimately solve business challenges for consumers or for the business doesn't get adopted. It has to solve a problem. And so my guest experience needs to be as good or better through this AI than it is with a 16-year-old that started 3 hours ago and has very little training on the menu and has very little training of who I am and what I want. So talk to me about the power of AI and how and why AI has the capability to replicate that experience but make it better every single time, because that's the thing that a lot of people that aren't in the technology space don't comprehend, is that the AI is self-learning. I was explaining to somebody the other day, I happen to drive a Tesla. I'm fortunate enough to have a Tesla, and that thing is constantly learning. And so every day that I'm going out, if there's different road conditions, it's changing the GPS and it's changing all that's going on, learning from the other cars that are around. And voice AI and AI in general is constantly doing that. So talk me through a little bit of that and educate our listeners, because most people they just think it's this box and it just goes in and it's pulling from the Dewey Decimal System. I'm pulling these books, but it's not that way. Like, and I know that sounds really archaic, and at the same time, it's hard to comprehend how much computing power and how many times they can evaluate the words and change what it's doing based on what's happening while it's self-learning.
Yeah. Oh, of course, happy to walk through it. First, humble brag for a Tesla owner. That's great. Power to you.
I feel bad saying it because, like, my 15-year-old's like, Dad, can you drive me to church camp in the Tesla? I'm like, no, I'm driving you in the minivan, dude. Like, you need to not be cool when you're going to church camp. So
yeah, I feel you. But yeah, so the way, simply put, think of AI like a regular team member. But instead of that team member learning as it goes and taking basic training, it is pre-trained. We program the AI for each restaurant's menu, and it integrates directly into their POS system, into their drive-through hardware, the base stations, etc. So that it's starting with all of the training that you would otherwise give a regular team member. That's ground zero. And that takes place before we go live in the first store with the brand. Now, take your hardest working team member, those golden team members that everyone wants, where they're genuinely, fun loving, they're endearing, they're very hardworking, and they just want to create a great guest experience. Now, managers, seize opportunities to improve and educate those team members with teachable moments all the time.
Absolutely.
So imagine every manager in every store that you operate across the country talking to that team member at once, and that team member actually being able to listen and absorb that information and never being able to forget a thing. That is what AI is like.
Yep.
It's a self-learning model where the more conversations that it takes in, the better it gets, just like your Tesla. And each guest gets a better experience moving forward. So, we're live in nearly 2,000 stores across the US. We're operational in 46 states, and we process, more than 1 million conversations every single month. And all of those conversations feed into the AI. So that it's not just learning from, your stores, it's actually learning from other stores as well. We're keeping all, proprietary data proprietary, but there's 101 ways to, say the word pizza. There's 101 ways to say the word taco. So, there's a lot of cross-pollination that takes place for everyone to win. And, just imagine like a powerhouse team member that has experience working at virtually every other restaurant out there, and they're bringing all of those key learnings into your brand. So, it's a pretty win-win scenario.
Well, and I think, again, I appreciate you educating people, because again, I hear these, super binary, because they just haven't spent enough time digging into how the AI continues to learn. Again, I spent some time talking, and this is even before ChatGPT, talking to our CTO about it. I'm like, why are we able to do this? And with the cost of compute and the cost of storage continuing to go down, it allows you to build these models. Talk to me about the model building, because with a lot of AI, it needs to build a model. So let's take that burger chain that's got 6 different, combos, and they've got them individually, and, any kind of guest self-ordering technology. whether that's voice, whether that's web, whether that's kiosks. You have to figure out those permeations of how people are going to order them and build them into the system, or you're going to hit roadblocks and have bad guest experience. How does the modeling work? Do you have to have that best team member sit there and tell it how Susie orders it, and how the lady that's the grandma that's been ordering this, is it self-learning? Talk to me a little bit about how it learns what is going on within the menu, because without it, you're going to deliver a worse guest experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do is we've created a number of in-house platforms that are dedicated solely to training our AI. So we have a tool that allows the AI to get trained on your menu and every possible permutation and combination within that menu, so that it's deeply familiar with the brand. That actually sits on top of a very strong foundation of general conversational AI and restaurant specific AI language that's used in the utterances that are exchanged. So going back to that note on there's 101 ways to order a pizza. So if we're onboarding a pizza brand, right, there's that base layer that just talks about the way that people converse in general. And then there's the restaurant in general layer that talks about basic restaurant speak. And then there's the cuisine specific layer, which is, okay, we have data about pizza. We have data about burgers. Let's apply it to this concept that has the same, type of menu. And then we have that layer on top that is very menu specific. So that's really tailored to the brand. So if you think about it this way, the models that we build, it's meant so that about 80% of the work is done even before the brand signs up, right?
Okay.
Because the AI is ready. It knows how people order food. It knows how people order that specific type of cuisine. And really, it just needs to be trained on your exact menu. And that includes your hidden menu items, your specials, right? Things that are unique to the stores, specific promos going on, like fundraisers, et cetera. If a store, has different operating hours, or if there's, a blizzard that's sweeping through and the store is closed, our AI senses that it'll shut down when it doesn't have to go. And then likewise, it operates when it needs to. So we've just really created, this virtual team member that it just needs some topping off in order to work with a brand new brand, so that the training process, takes very little time.
I love it. And I think to myself, I mean, you're a San Diego guy, so I was just talking to somebody who I was with him last week, and he just moved to Orange County, and he's like, man, I can't get myself enough In-N-Out, because he was from the Midwest. And so, but he's doing this, protein only or carnivore diet or something. And I was like, and so he's telling me about the lettuce wrap, and then he's telling me about the flying, style, the protein style. And he's telling me about the Flying Dutchman. But at In-N-Out, there's 3 different ways to order that protein style. There's the lettuce, you can call it the lettuce wrap, you can call it protein style. Is that all built in? Because I know when I program POS, because that's my day job, it would just be protein style. So when Ben walks up and says, hey, can I get a lettuce wrap burger? I'm going to touch the button that says protein style. How does the system learn that protein style means the same thing as lettuce wrap, and build that model so that it knows lettuce wraps? Is there some web behind that you guys have that says this is a lookalike, like my Google Photos, or my, this looks like this kid, or this looks like that kid on my Google Photos? Is that kind of how it works?
In a sense, yes. What we do is we meet with the brand to talk about all of their menu items. And if there's a new menu item that our AI isn't already familiar with, then yes, we will do that lookalike comparison. So, for example, we'll take pizza. You can say pizza, or you can say pie, and the AI will understand that the word pie will mean pizza. Whereas, with your lettuce wrap example, yes, it's a very easy discussion where we will, get the menu items from the brand, whether they're regular menu or secret menu or, special limited time items. And we do that lookalike analysis to find any and every possible way that someone could reference that item so that it does, funnel into the actual POS selection, which
Love it.
the AI, submits on the restaurant's behalf.
Well, and again, it's gonna get better. And I just, back to the learnings. It's like the build your own. I mean, we've all been to a Mod or a Blaze type pizza, and you've got the meat lovers, and you've got the all of their names that they have for them. And I can say meat lovers with extra pepperoni and no cheese, whatever, that is relatively binary. But then you go to the build your own burger, the build your own pizza, the build your own salad concepts. They turn into a much more complex set of rules that you've got to build, whether you're building it in the POS or you're building it into an AI solution like you guys have, which I think is just, it's amazing. Talk to me a little bit about accents, because you talk about this 100-store chain that might have some people in the South and people in Northeast. I was at a recent customer engagement with somebody from New England, and we were in Texas and we were in South Texas, and the guy, oh, where are you from? And he said Rhode Island, but the way he said it, the guy's like, where are you from? And like didn't understand what he was saying, because he just legitimately didn't understand what the guy's accent. How do you guys normalize for things like that? Because it's hard. I mean, it's sometimes even as a human being, understanding somebody that might have a thick accent, whether it's foreign or it's even domestic, that's tough from time to time. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, no, it's a very top of mind thing that we're happy to have accounted for, where we digest so much information that we have the ability for the AI to learn from it, right? Because we're operational in 46 states, we've heard just about every dialect that you could have in the US. So, when you're taking in more than 1 million conversations a month, and they're geographically distributed in the way that they are, we have swaths of data that we're already pulling from so that the AI can correct itself from errors that it may have made due to miscommunication from an accent. So we really have that data set, or that data moat on our side, where because we've been there, done that, it's something that we've sort of taken care of, and it's a really, really hard hurdle to get past.
Yeah. Well, especially because every one of those permeations of the Southern accent from Alabama with the pie and the way he says pepperoni might be different than the guy in New York City, and how the guy from Long Island is going to say that. And so, really, really critical to doing that.
Yeah. And I want to, I don't mean to skip ahead if you had this question, lined up for later, but a lot of people ask themselves, how come I can't order through Alexa or through Siri or what have you? And, how come the big tech companies like Apple and Amazon and Google, like, how come they didn't just seize this instantly? And, the services like Alexa and Siri, they're great. I got to meet the Siri co-founders actually before they were,
awesome.
The people who founded it before, Steve Jobs approached them. It was a great conversation that they led, but it's excellent for general discussion. The reason that companies like Converse Now are thriving is that we're working in a very niche space that would be very difficult for the big tech companies to focus on, given their, just their sheer size, where they would have to develop entire teams or even a spin-off brand to deal specifically with restaurants. The AI from a Siri or an Alexa gives you that base layer, right? Of like basic conversational utterances, but there's not a lot of restaurant specific language. And given how every restaurant is different and every store could potentially have different hours, different promos, etc., that is not something that the large tech companies are necessarily eager to cater to on such an individual basis. It's much more of a one size fits all.
Well, and I think that back to guest experience, if it's not going to be done well, we've all had the experience with Alexa. We've all had the experience with Siri where it's like, I don't understand what you're saying. And you can't do that when you're a consumer facing brand that is selling something. to somebody. Siri is not likely. Apple's not selling me something likely when I'm looking something up on Siri. I'm looking for directions. I'm looking to text my wife. I'm looking to figure out what the temperature is going to be. I'm not necessarily looking to go buy a MacBook. I promise you, if they made it to a point where I had to buy a MacBook and I was spending $2,000 on there, they'd figure it out. But they've chosen not to, and they oftentimes will say, whether it's Siri or it's Google Voice or it's Alexa, they all say, go to the web, open your browser, because you need to continue this here, which gives you the ability to have a multi-threaded conversation. Let's talk about opt-out. So I'm now in the drive-through. I'm not having a great experience. I'm not able to get what I want. My wife, I again talk about having 4 kids. There's a nationally recognized chicken brand that is closed on Sundays that has a meal that one of my children will not eat unless they talk to a person to order that meal. So she can't use the app. They have a fantastic app. She's good with driving through drive-through, but she can't do it on the app because it doesn't allow her to order the food the way that my son likes to have it. And again, I'm not picking on Chick-fil-A because he's probably in the 0.00001% of people that want what he wants, but she can't go to the app if my son is eating with us when we go to Chick-fil-A. Not picking on Chick-fil-A, but that happens. And so in your world, talk to me a little bit about if I'm in that drive-through and we notice that it's going poorly, the AI notices it's going poorly, the guest notices it's going poorly. How does that interaction change back to a live human being? Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, I know the answer to this, Ben, but I want our listeners to understand that it's not 100% of the time and you have to do it. No different than McDonald's learned really early on. When you only allow people to order through the kiosks, they get really pissed off. When you force, especially Americans, to do it your way, they don't like it. And so talk to me a little bit about how you guys get around that opt-out. I don't want to use the AI to deal with my ordering today.
Of course, with guest experience being the most important thing for us, we always want to make sure that guests have the opportunity to speak with a person if they want to. Just as you very well noted, there are times when someone just prefers to speak to a person, whether it's age or geography that influences that, or whether, they've had a bad experience before, whether they just saw the movie iRobot. There are a number of reasons. And, it's no hard feelings on us. We don't take it personally. We know that there's a subsect of people that want that human touch, and we always give them that opportunity. So, if the guest wants to speak to a person, they can say the word agent or something like that, and that'll direct them to a human being that they can talk to that will serve them as needed. So that your son could, have his custom order at Chick-fil-A just the way he wants it. I've been there too, right?
Yep.
And then for just ensuring that smooth experience, right? We recognize that AI, while it's exploded in the media waves, there's still some time before it really becomes that mainstream default way of, taking orders at restaurants. I mean, it's imminent, but there's a process that needs to be followed. Mm-hmm. And right now, we're looking at those early adopters and those innovators that are embracing AI as an ordering method. And we just let the results speak for themselves. What we've noted is that maybe someone might request a person the first time they talk to AI, but then they go back and order again and they're like, oh, I'll try it this time. Oh, that wasn't so bad. And then the next time, like, you know what? That was actually better than when I ordered with a person. It was quicker. My food came out faster. My order was very accurate. Nothing was wrong. And okay. And then it keeps going until all of a sudden that person really prefers the AI over a person because those results are speaking for themselves. So we just let we let our product deliver the results and that great experience people are looking for. And, the adoption curve follows.
Well, and I think restaurant brands and consumer brands are going to have to decide how do they want to let that happen. I know years ago when Starbucks first released their app, almost everybody still stood in line and wanted to talk to their normal barista. Now, 9 times out of 10 when I walk into a Starbucks, nobody's standing in line. Everybody's standing there waiting for the barista to make the drink that they already ordered on their app. They don't actually want to talk to a human being. They've ordered on their app and now it's gone because to your point, it's been better, faster, smarter. What does the AI do with conflicts? Something goes out of stock. Something, is on the menu, but now they don't have it. How does it deal with that? And I mean, I just don't know. I mean, this is a little bit of my curiosity. I ordered this pizza and I asked for olives and I just ran out of olives on the pizza just before that. And the AI is in the middle of taking that order and it goes to submit it to the POS and recognizes that we no longer have olives or, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of AI being just like a team member, it reacts to that situation in the same way a team member would, in that it receives that signal saying this item is no longer in stock, and it will kindly, share with the guest, hey, look, we don't have that item in stock. Can I interest you in something else? And it might suggest a similar menu item. It's the same as when a guest will, just try to mess up the AI. Let's say that you're at a Mexican concept and someone tries to order sushi, which
Mhm.
clearly the restaurant would not sell. It would say, sorry, I don't carry that item, or that item's not available. Can I interest you in something else? So
Yeah.
I'd say relatively simple, just trying to emulate what it really is like to have a physical team member, to the greatest extent.
Last question before I want to start talking about the statistics and what you guys have seen as far as adoption curves. Have you guys gotten to a place where you guys are, so drive through is obviously huge. But I know from my own personal experience, the takeout ordering process, especially at anything other than a fast food restaurant, and quite frankly, all takeout ordering experiences over the phone. I am still one of those people that from time to time, I don't have I have 700 apps on my phone, but I only have 700 apps on my phone because I'm in the industry. I don't use them oftentimes to order because I'm driving home from baseball practice. I want to order food from my family on my way home, and it's awful. It's really bad. It's in a lot of brands they haven't resourced it appropriately, and so it goes to the front desk, and then the front desk team member transfers it to somebody. You're sitting on hold. By the time I get the order in, I might as well just driven to the store and ordered the food. Oftentimes, and that's been my guest experience, and so it prevents me from doing that in the brands that I have that experience. And so, to me, a phone call-in order is not a whole lot different than a drive-through order. Timing is obviously different because I'm not 2 or 3 cars back, but getting an order into the system through AI and whatnot. Have you guys started to tackle that yet, Ben?
Um, I would actually say that that's the first thing that we tackled,
Okay.
even before drive-through. So we're an omni-channel platform. We serve phone and drive-through, in addition to, really any other voice ordering channel that you can think of. So phone is, we have some very prominent phone customers. Those that I can publicly talk about. One is Domino's Pizza, and we're all across the country with them. And the same thing with Wingstop. So both those brands, phone is a very, strong source of revenue for them and a very helpful one.
Yeah.
And yeah, phone isn't necessarily growing at the same rate as in-app ordering, but it's a really prominent channel, and a lot of people, just like you and me, really want that experience of calling up a restaurant and placing your order and customizing it in a way that maybe you can't find online.
Yeah.
So what we do is, we configure our AI to, really solve that pain point for the guest. And it really goes that step further, where, look, you're calling to place your order on a Friday night, and your call is not getting picked up. You're hearing busy signals. You try and call back
Mhm.
2, 3, 4 times, and beyond the busy signal, maybe people just aren't picking up. They've
Yeah.
got too much going on, or they just don't feel like it. Or maybe you're trying to call in 10 minutes before closing, and a tired team member is not going to want to take that order because they just want to go home.
Yeah.
Well, we automate that entire process. The AI gives you all the time in the world, so you don't feel like you're talking to someone who's super rushed. on the other end where, they have to get back to, making burgers or pizzas or what have you. The AI will, take your, fundraising code or your coupon code or whatever it might be, and it just really, gives you that experience that you're looking for. Picks up after the first ring, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you get to, speak with a person if you want to as well. And we do that for, QSR concepts as well as, full service concepts, where, maybe it's a higher end group that you want to order from. And yeah, we take their phone orders too.
Yeah, and I was just on the phone with somebody else that's trying to solve a different problem earlier today, and he and I were talking about somewhere close to some very large percentage, more than 50% of orders that come into restaurants don't get answered in an appropriate amount of time. The statistics that he gave me was pretty significant, and if I'm calling for a revenue opportunity, you got to figure out how to solve that problem. And so, I guess where you're able, Ben, talk to me about the success that you guys have seen. Statistics. Throw some. Brag on what you guys have done for a few of the brands. I know you alluded to Domino's and Wingstop just a few minutes ago, but I know that you guys are focused on solving this problem. You guys have continued to build momentum and solve challenging issues. Staffing is hard. Drive through, and quite frankly, people don't want to sit there and deal with the guests over and over again. They're fine to make the food and put it in the bag, but like that same repetitive, number one, bringing it to the point of sale, automating that and getting them out of the process is something that can add value even to the staff members, and allow you to have them do things that are guest facing, that aren't this bad experience. So where you're able, talk to me a little bit about what you guys have solved. You talked about a million orders that you guys process in a month, but what else?
Yeah, so we, I'll break it down into three different categories, and we'll start with the one that probably the majority of your listeners are most interested in, and that's bottom line impact. So, average ticket is a huge thing that we like to focus on, and I'm happy to say that we increase average ticket upwards of 25% with
Wow.
a number of the stores that we work with. Some it's higher than 30, and there's a couple things that happen there, namely that AI will upsell 100% of the time.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter how busy the restaurant is, AI has all the time in the world. It takes limitless calls at once. It's programmed to upsell. It's programmed to upsell based on whatever the brand specifies. And it has a dynamic upsell. So it'll upsell you on the most appropriate item, based on your original order. So if you're ordering, an a la carte entree, then it might upsell you on a side or a drink. If you're ordering a combo, it might upsell you on a dessert. If you're ordering, an item that doesn't necessarily pair with either, then it might upsell you on, like an accoutrement, like, a dipping cup or something like that, where it will upsell tastefully so that people don't feel, turned off by it.
Or you're
You
not
know,
you're not a vegetarian and you've ordered nothing but vegetarian, and now it's like, do you want the 16-ounce ribeye? It's like, no, come on.
yeah, right.
I don't want the 16-ounce ribeye. I just ordered 3 salads, but
Sure, sure. Yeah, so it'll employ this upsell tastefully, and we have recently seen a very significant number of people converting on those upsell offerings, which is great, and it's driving the average ticket up pretty substantially. So that's one item where we're really driving results, is in that average ticket. The other, of course, is with regard to order count. So because the AI takes limitless orders at once,
Mhm.
number one, it's taking orders that might have otherwise gone missed. So in a phone environment, it's those calls that were, that guests got fed up, they didn't call back, or they hung up early before someone could take their order. Now those orders are getting converted. In the drive-through, maybe speed of service is faster. So you're getting through, you're getting more people that are going into a line that would otherwise have appeared too long when they were, driving past the restaurant. So during those critical peak hours, we've had restaurant operators tell us that their orders per labor hour are up nearly 2x,
Wow.
which, yeah, it's big. Because you look at the efficiency that it drives. All of
Hmm.
a sudden, you have people who are just making orders. There's no more taking orders. They're focused solely on fulfillment. So someone who would otherwise, have to spend 5 minutes on the phone with a really picky customer, now they've just cranked out half a dozen orders, just throwing them in the bag to just drive that volume. And
Hmm.
you multiply that on a national scale, and those numbers add up pretty substantially. So we've seen that our AI is redeploying a significant amount of labor. When I say redeploying, what I'm getting at is that um, they're taking people. Most restaurants don't have, like, a lot of them don't have dedicated order takers, right? These are people that
Hmm.
are juggling multiple tasks.
Yep.
So now they're juggling one less item, and now they're able to devote that time to more productivity. So we're reallocating that labor in a way that's really allowing restaurants to drive their sales.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things I'll mention, and I think a lot of people start here. Oh, you're going to throw kiosks, you're going to put a bunch of people out of jobs, and the answer is one. All of our restaurant operators know it's hard to hire people right now, and number two, most of them don't want to do this job. They're not in the business of doing this job. They're happy to go deliver the food. They're happy to make the food, but they don't necessarily want to deal with this portion of it. And so, figuring out how to solve that is paramount, whether you're doing it through a digital ordering platform or you're doing it through an AI platform, or the combination of both, because your statistics about the increase in revenue is commensurate with other digital ordering platforms that are there. When you have that
Oh,
upsell, whether it's on a
absolutely.
website or it's on the kiosk, those same statistics happen, which is awesome.
Oh, absolutely. And, going into that staff experience, right? One, you're looking at a lot of people in the younger generations that are working these jobs, and that generation, for better or for worse, really doesn't enjoy a lot of human interaction as much
Mhm.
as maybe people are otherwise used to. So, having the AI take care of that so they don't have to, makes their job more enjoyable. Not to mention, just having to juggle one less thing in a hectic restaurant environment, it reduces stress, and it dramatically increases job satisfaction. So we've had operators tell us that their staff retention is substantially longer than it
Yep.
was before they got AI. And some have gone so far as to say that team members are leaving other franchises and joining theirs because they have AI, and they know
Wow.
that it's just going to be an easier job for the same pay. So it's a great recruiting tool. And then as far as the guest experience goes, we measure customer satisfaction. And we're happy to share that, look, our CSAT scores are exceeding the QSR industry standard in many cases by a very large margin. So it's
That's
showing
amazing.
us that the guests are really happy with their experience. Um, you could say that they're happier with the experience than they were with regular team members. So, right now, between the guest, the staff, and the bottom line, all signs are pointing in a positive direction.
All right, I'm sold, Ben. Now, how do I get engaged? Tell me a little
Yeah,
bit more.
sure.
Like what? So I'm now a restaurant. I've sat on this call. I've sat and watched us sit here and talk for 45 minutes. How do I engage with your team? What does it look like? What does an engagement look like? And what can I expect as a restaurant operator?
Yeah, of
Whether I'm a
course.
franchise of a national brand or I'm an owner, I'm an IT guy. What does that look like to start the dialogue with you guys, and what can they expect?
Yeah, we're always eager to support more brands. We want nothing more than to just serve the larger restaurant community and really shape the future of restaurants. And for those interested, just contact us. Our website is conversenow.ai. You're welcome to contact me directly if you would like. I'm benjamin.brown@conversenow.ai. I can put you in touch with the right people. And it's a pretty easy hands-off discussion where, all right, we talk about the way that you measure success. We want to make sure that we're aligned. And then you just share us your menu. Our tech team, make sure to program the AI to get to know your menu. There's a relatively hands-off onboarding process where, we test out the AI, we make sure it works well. We choose a couple of pilot locations where it goes live in a controlled environment. we hold your hand every step of the way, right?
Mhm.
And then, once it's live, it's live. There's really no staff training required. Depending on whether you're a phone, whether your revenue is driven through phone, through drive-through, through both, right? There's just some setup that takes place there, but it doesn't disrupt your day-to-day operations aside from the fact that AI is taking your order.
Mhm.
Um, you know, any additional hardware is something that we take care of. It's not like you're going to have to install a new base station or get a new telephony provider. We work with virtually all of them. So it's really as simple as saying hi, learning more about our platform, are training the AI on your menu, testing it out, and then it's off to the races.
Yeah, and I know in our pre-show before we jumped on, I was playing around on the website, and there's a lot of examples. A lot of the stuff that we talked about today is represented on the website. So good job on the marketing and customer experience side, letting that
Oh,
letting that happen. I mean, and again, it for a lot of people, they want to go check that stuff out, and so I would implore you guys, if you guys are interested in this. And in general, these guys are amazing and they focus on this vertical. There are other competitors of what these guys do. If you're not thinking about it or already in the middle of implementation, I promise you your competitors are. So figure it out, because you know what? At the end of the day, these, whether it's order accuracy, guest satisfaction, it's the growth in revenue, it's going to continue to be something that is going to be a point of differentiation for your brand if you have it. And if you don't, you are going to be left behind, and ultimately they are going to win. And I'm not just saying that because I know it's happening. Every time I talk to restaurant brands, I ask them, what are they doing to solve these problems? Because if you are not solving it, somebody else is solving it, and they're getting that order oftentimes where you wouldn't be.
Yeah, Jeremy, very well spoken. I really don't have anything to add to that. Don't get left behind. Just on the note of competition, whether it's Converse Now or another group that does voice AI for restaurants, we all aim to lift up the restaurant business and make restaurants, more operationally efficient and financially sustainable than they've ever been. The only thing I would want to instill on anyone thinking about AI are understanding essentially real AI versus fake AI. Because with the explosion of ChatGPT,
Yeah.
there's a million and one groups out there that call themselves AI experts, in the same way that, anyone who has an Instagram account is a self-proclaimed social media expert. What
Sorry.
we've found is, look, this is coming from a group that spent, 5 years building our own AI from scratch. What we found is a couple groups are using call centers, like overseas call centers based in the Philippines, what have you, with live human agents monitoring every call, and they're entering the order manually, and then that order is shared with the guest through an AI voice. So the guest feels like they're talking to AI, but it's more of this Wizard of Oz kind of effect, where there's a man behind the curtain who's actually pulling all the strings. Now, at the end of the day, the guest gets served, and that's great. The reason that a lot of groups do this are, one, they don't have the AI technology, but two, it shows very well. In other
Mhm.
words, during that really critical pilot phase, when you're live in maybe like a couple of stores, um, instantaneously, a quote unquote fake AI company will demonstrate immediate results.
Yeah.
Whereas real AI, look, there's a training process that takes place. It's going
Mhm.
to be good, but it's not going to be perfect out of the gate. So, you know, when it's all excellent until you say, okay, next week I want this in 10,000 stores. And if you're with a vendor that doesn't have the real technology, that will simply be impossible to scale.
So how do
And
they find that?
it,
I mean, I know we're getting close to time, because
yeah,
how do
yeah,
they figure that out? If I'm a restaurant brand and because again, nothing against what you guys do, because I personally have played with it. I know it's awesome. I'm glad to have you on the show and share the good news of what you guys are doing. And at the same time, I promise you, a director of IT is going to have to go bring in 2 or 3 options to a CEO before they move forward with it. He's not going to be able to just go, "Oh, these guys are the best, and you should go with them." How do they figure that out? That people are doing this? Because
yeah,
while it makes
yeah.
sense,
And
it
oh, of
pisses me
course.
off that people are lying about this crap.
Yeah, And I only bring it up at the end because, if someone is interested, right, it's a really important thing that you need to flag. And the easiest way to flag quote unquote fake AI is consistently long lag times. And that means that almost every time after you say something to the virtual assistant, that it will take, 5+ seconds for the ordering
Okay.
assistant to get back to you, which means that's the time it's taking an agent to type everything appropriately in the background.
Got you.
So every once in a while, real AI will take some time to
Yeah.
process an order, especially if it's a really long order.
Uh-huh.
But if it's consistently happening, then, if it feels fishy, it probably
It
is.
probably is. I would have never even considered that. I know that was in my notes and we never got to it because I was so geeked out on the other conversations. But that all being said, Ben, I'm grateful that you came on. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do so. If you haven't gone and checked these guys out, I'm excited about what they're doing. I do think it's going to continue. I shouldn't say I think. I know it's going to continue to change the way that we order within restaurants. And so I'm here cheering you guys on. I can't wait till we have our first mutual customer where we can go do that stuff together. That's a totally different deal than the podcast. But again, to our listeners out there, guys, we know that you guys have got lots of choices on how you spend your time, how you spend your energy. So we appreciate you guys spending time with us. To Ben, thank you so much. And to our audience, make it a great day.
Cool. Thank you.